Hi, David. We're gonna give it a couple minutes, so just, it's streaming live now, just so you know, okay? So I'm gonna say we're gonna give it a couple minutes. If you want to go dark for a couple minutes, you're good. I'm just typing, making notes in the chat. Okay, good afternoon. Can you hear me okay, David?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Welcome to everyone joining us. My name is Carrie Fuso. I'm a student life advisor for Pasadena City College. And today it's my pleasure to host a student town hall for our student trustee elections. We originally held our elections in the spring, and the student who was elected was offered a transfer to Yale. So she took that, and that left us without a trustee. So per regulations, we waited till school started, and we have set out the applications and asked students who are interested in running. And after going through the process, we have one candidate who is qualified to run. And so today he will be joining us and answering a few questions and allowing you, the student, to get to know him. Just a reminder, student trustee elections will happen next week, Tuesday and Wednesday. If you go to lancerlife.pasadena.edu, you're going to, on Tuesday or Wednesday, you'll see a banner at the very top reminding you that you can vote. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you Mr. David Ramirez. He is a student who is running for student trustee, and I'd like to give him 2 or 3 minutes just to tell us about himself. So David, take it away.
All right, sounds good. Hello, everyone. My name is David Ramirez. First and foremost, I'm running to be re-elected as your student trustee. I served as student trustee last year. What that is that I'd be the board member representing students on the board of trustees of the college, which means that it would be my responsibility to voice your concerns at the highest levels of college governance here at PCC. The reason why I'm running is because, like many of you, I've been screwed over. I've been told one thing about my education and have been given something entirely different. I'm running because students shouldn't have to find out that the in-person classes that they paid for are going virtual just 2 days before the start of the semester. I'm running because the college has emergency funds that are still unused while students are suffering through the semester. And we're still being charged for parking on top of that. I'm running because we need students that are willing to confront these issues at a time where decisions are happening at this college with or without our consent. I did my best last year to elevate students in the best way that I knew how. I'm just hopeful that this year I can do the same.
Thank you. You mentioned, and you may have not fully articulated this, but you held this same position last year as student trustee. I'd be curious to know, is there something, now that you're coming back a second time, is there something that you would do differently?
Yes, what I think I missed out a lot last year was a student trustee. I didn't really get to develop more personal relationships with trustees and administration simply because of the nature of my term. I was fully virtual. I never got to have those conversations in between meetings, or I never even got to have like a cup of coffee with the trustee until very recently. So I think it really helps student advocacy when students are not just students to the people that we're talking to every day. Those personal relationships really matter in our advocacy. So that would be a main focus for me this year.
Thank you. Tell us about something in your life or an experience in your life that you think has prepared you to really participate, as you said, at some of the highest levels of decision making for this campus.
I'm sorry, you were cutting off a little bit, but what I understand from that question is what 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 has prepared me to serve in this position. Firstly, I did serve as student trustee, as I said, and so I'm well acquainted with all of the trustees already. Unfortunately, with being student trustee, there's a huge learning curve because there's just so much that you need to know to be able to really function in this position. Luckily, I don't need to go through that anymore. I can just hit the ground running with everything that I know. I also served on the Student Senate for the California Community Colleges as a legislative affairs director. So I served on that board of directors for a full year. And so I'm also very knowledgeable about statewide student organizations. And I just know how to get into contact with many people. And so that would really help me in this position.
Thank you. So we're as everyone knows, we're living through very difficult times right now, and there are students who have a lot of concerns. I think you have mentioned that folks, the COVID money is there, and a lot of students are receiving funds, but there's still a lot that can be done. Is there one thing that you would like to focus on in terms of supporting students through COVID?
I think what I really liked seeing last year was that PCC offered students the opportunity to fill out a form to get some emergency funds, no questions asked. I thought that was really amazing. I think we should do more of that. I think a lot of students that don't qualify for financial aid are suffering right now. Students that don't qualify for Cal Grant, for FAFSA, for whatever it may be. There are students that face artificial barriers, such as time spent out of high school, that aren't qualifying for financial aid and really need those funds. So I think more of that would go a long way to help our non-traditional students.
Cool, thank you. Going along with the whole idea around what we're doing with COVID, currently students must be masked and vaccinated to be on campus. But there's a lot of students who don't want to be vaccinated. How do you serve their needs? Because you do represent them. Or conversely, how do you represent the needs of folks who are vaccinated? There's two different camps.
Yeah. Well, I definitely respect the decisions of students, whether it may be religious or just personal beliefs to not get vaccinated. Fortunately, PCC does offer virtual courses, so they can still get education at PCC without physically being here. But we do have to follow the mandate. I've been working with associated students to make PSAs for students to encourage them to get vaccinated. Because it is important that that we do get as many of us vaccinated, so those that are on campus are not at risk.
Great. I've noticed our YouTube chat. It's really exciting. We have people submitting questions. And so I'm going to try and summarize some of these questions. And I think one of the questions is, will you represent CTE students on the Board of Trustees?
Yeah, of course. I think, very unfortunately, I've seen that CTE students aren't at the table typically, and especially non-credit students. There's a requirement on our student government that requires 9 credits for every student officer to take 9 credits to serve on our board. Unfortunately, non-credit students are excluded from that. And so I would definitely make it, I would make an intentional approach to seek out CTE students. I did work with a lot of CTE students last year. In fact, I served on the Academic Senate CTE committee for the statewide Academic Senate. And so I've been getting a lot of perspective for CTE students in that respect.
Thank you. So we have another question, and it's regarding relationships, because I think you mentioned early on that one of the things that you would do differently is kind of reach out and build those relationships with other student trustees. The question is, would you be willing to risk a personal relationship with the BOT to represent the student voice?
You said to risk a relationship?
Yes, I think the question is, one of the things you want to do was you want to create relationships and build those bridges. And I guess the kind of question is, at what point are you willing to risk those relationships or in order to represent the student voice?
Well, to be frank, I have done that. In the beginning of my term, the Board of Trustees was considering a resolution to adopt a support stance on Proposition 16. And there was a motion to take that off of our agenda, and I voted no, because I believe that that it impacted our students very positively. That Proposition 16 would have done a lot for our work with anti-racism for DEI. And I really heavily disagreed with the board's decision to do that. And so, yeah, I've done it before. I don't have a problem confronting issues that need to be confronted.
Thank you. Look and see if there's anything else in the chat. What would you do? So you mentioned in your earlier introduction about the challenges you had with classes being switched at the last minute. What is your plan going in to make sure that doesn't happen again?
Well, on the sidelines, I've been working with associated students to work on a resolution to address the students' concerns regarding what has happened the past month. That resolution hasn't come to fruition yet, but in a sense, what I hope to do is to convey a message to our administration that that we don't think that was okay, and hopefully they'll hear us for the next semester, because at this point we can't do much for our semester as it is now, but hopefully we can change that going forward.
What do you say to high school students who are sitting this semester out, who are looking at PCC as an option, but they're not sure? What would you tell them?
I would say honestly, to look at what community colleges are looking at, are serving in-person classes. To be frank, it might be difficult for PCC to begin offering in-person classes this late into the semester. So honestly, I would say find wherever you can, because I know I understand how important it is to have in-person class. Personally, I couldn't learn calculus over online. That's what delayed my transfer. And so I understand if they have to go to a different community college and then come back afterwards. But yeah, that would be my best advice.
You mentioned earlier DEI and what bill was it? Was it 16? I'm sorry, you mentioned that.
Yes,
earlier.
Proposition 16, it would have been to reinstate affirmative action in our public institutions.
So that's about DEI, diversity, inclusion. What would you do? What do you want to see? How would you continue to push for that agenda?
Yeah, so associated students this last year, and I try to push it as much as I can. We did add a lot of anti-racist language into our mission statements, into our non-discrimination statements. So we are hopefully we're going to take a step further. Not just putting it into our statements, but actually putting action into that. But I would like to see AS do more is to consult with support groups that support Black African American students, so Black Academia, GMA. I would like to see AS be more intentional about their work, and hopefully I can support that in any way I can.
How would you move the trustees? It's one thing to work with the students, but you are the only one who is a peer for the Board of Trustees. How would you move them towards a more just and inclusive platform?
Well, I would continue asking the difficult questions. This last year, we added on a DEI agenda item to the board. And so this is still a fresh conversation that needs to be had. There's still a lot of difficult conversations that the trustees still have not had about the racist system that do function at PCC. And so, yeah, I would just keep asking the difficult questions. Definitely, I want to connect trustees themselves to Black African American students to get their perspectives directly. I want to elevate their voices as much as possible, not just to relay messages. And so that would be more my focus.
Right. I think circling back to the beginning, kind of when you introduced yourself, just really briefly, where do you want to go from here? I mean, do you want to transfer? What are your plans in life?
So it's just like my personal aspirations. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I want to transfer to any institution that will help me pursue environmental policy. I'm hoping to be a lawyer in environmental law. But yeah, that's the goal.
Okay.
I have a Starbucks barista at the moment. That's not the end goal though.
Okay. We have another question coming up in the chat, and let's see. Let me read it. So a lot of damage or disruption has been caused with this change from on ground to online classes. And I know you've discussed that a little bit. but what do you think can be done to mitigate the damage to students? We have some students who can't tag anymore because they're not able to get the classes or the prerequisites. We have transfer students who are going to come up that needed to complete things. Like you said yourself, you couldn't take calculus. You were lucky to find an on-ground calculus class. So this is kind of drawing on your experience as a former trustee and now looking forward. Again, I think some of the student voices are, the question is, are there things, what can be done to mitigate the damage or the disruption that has been done?
I think it would be fair for us as students to ask our administration to add on in-person late start classes. That way, students that are specifically in classes that satisfy as many general education requirements as possible, so that people can tag, people can transfer. Hopefully, to make the semester as least of an inconvenience as possible for students. I also understand that faculty are now being incentivized to be on campus. I think they're getting paid $50 a day for those that are in person. So hopefully that does incentivize faculty that switched virtual to come back in person. So yeah.
Okay. What would you do? I think as an educator, I kind of have a concern because we have students who will be graduating this year who may never have been on campus. What would you do to, it's weird to say that I graduated from PCC but never went there. How would you, is there a way that you would think you could address that? Is there a way that you would do something? Just because it's an odd piece, and we're not the only ones. There are colleges around the country who have that same experience. But just the fact that our students are disconnected from our community, is there something that you would do to fix that, help that, support that?
Well, luckily we have amazing AS members that are trying to do that work. I've seen Natalie Guzman and Marcus Gomez conduct very amazing events with Welcome Week with Club Rush. Hopefully those more events we see in the future get students excited to be on campus. I would support them in the best way that I can. But I definitely want to see PCC to have a physical commencement, not just a commencement, because I think students deserve that.
Thank you. As a student trustee, you often travel to Sacramento or Washington, D.C., or even in Pasadena to speak with other elected officials as the official representative of the college. What's one message you would take to our elected officials that are students from our students?
I think the most pertinent issue to students right now, and especially students at PCC, many of our students are out of district and come from low-income communities. And so many of them rely on financial aid to get through their education. I would just reiterate the importance of equitable financial aid reform. We're seeing AB 1456 get through the 1456, right? Get through the legislature to reform financial aid and Cal Grants and give more equitable access to non-traditional students. I would advocate for more as much as possible.
Great. Well, I think we're going to wrap this up. I want to allow you just a few more seconds just to give us one last pitch and anything else that you want to say.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate what I value most as a student leader. I value structural student representation. I will make it my mission to ensure that there's representation of students in every decision-making that impacts students' lives. I also care about equitable relief for students, as I mentioned. Our most vulnerable students need relief that Cal Grants and financial aid doesn't cover. Students that are low income, first generation, undocumented, and so many others are struggling to get by every day, and they need relief. But most importantly, I value pushing to reopen the college so we can be a place to support those students in person, where we can keep them safe, because oftentimes their homes aren't secure. That is why our enrollment at PCC has gone down. It's needless to say. Until we can provide the care that students deserve, many of our students simply won't come back. I just want to thank anyone that is listening right now I hope I can have the pleasure of serving your student trustee again.
Awesome. Thank you so much, David. Just want to remind the audience that the election will take place Tuesday and Wednesday. You would like to go to log into lancerlife.pasadena.edu. And at the very top, it's going to say a banner. You're going to see a banner. It's going to say click here to vote. We do have one other constitutional amendment on the ballot, as well as the student trustee. So please take some time and vote for your candidate. I will tell you, people assume that, hey, David's going to get it because he's the only one running, but he won't. He must get 50% positive vote. So if 100 people vote, he has to have 51 that vote affirmative. You have the option to vote yes or no for the candidate. And he must get 51%, 50% plus one of the vote. So don't forget lancerlife.pasadena.edu. The polls open Tuesday morning. We'll go for 48 hours and we will announce on Lancer Life on Wednesday the results. So thank you all very much. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out. I'll put our email in the Zoom chat so you can touch base with myself or someone else in our office to ask any questions. You heard David speak a lot about the great work that Associate Students is doing, and they're still looking for committee members. And so I'd encourage you to go to our website, PCC. It's the as.pasadena.edu, excuse me. And I'll put that in the chat as well. So you could also look at the website for Associate Students, or if you're on here, come on by, and we're in CC 105. So thank you very much and have a great day.
Have a good one, everyone.